Today we're going to be breaking down Jesus and Whatnot's performance against the atheist, born-again atheist. She is what I believe to be the most insufferable atheist, which says a lot, I have ever come across. But before I talk about the logic and all that, I do want to go into one thing. I want to set the scene for the debate and discuss each person's background. And by background, I literally mean background. If you notice Jesus and Whatnot, he's got a suit on, he's got a plain background, he's in his room, he's coming at this with a more professional and clear open mind, while born-again atheist is coming at this with, if you look at her background, she's got a painting of herself, she's got the devil horns on, she's got a bunch of stuff on her walls, she's more expressive. Just by looking at her, just by her background, you can tell this is not a person here for a serious debate. She more wants to express herself and almost clip farm in a way. And also, really think about what kind of person would put up a painting of themselves debating. Just think about those things while we go into the debate. And also, if you enjoy and if you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But now that we have that out of the way, I think we should get into the actual debate.
Going to be a real capacity for something to be other than it is, and act is going to be the fulfillment of that potency. So, for example, this lighter is not currently producing a flame, but it has the real capacity to do so. That is called potency. Now, if I strike the lighter, that would be a fulfillment of that potency. And that's what we're going to call actuality, or act.
So Jesus and Whatnot then ties this concept to the idea of a God, saying that if there was a being that had no potency, or if it was a being of pure action, it would not need something to act upon it to act. If it was just a being within itself, it would, logically speaking, be perfect. There would be no flaw. It would be only what it is. So his argument is that if the universe was the domino effect from a larger singularity, then there would need to be a being that set off that singularity. There needs to be something at the start of that chain, and the thing at the start of that chain would logically be a god.
It follows that in all things there is some ratio of this act and potency. That's premise one. Now, premise two is that in this world we observe things that are in motion. Now, motion is going to be defined as something being reduced from potency to actuality. Now, don't confuse this with locomotion. That would be like me throwing something or a car moving on the highway. That's like physical motion. But rather, we're talking about motion. It's going to be something going from non-being to being.
Now keep this clip in mind for later, because he describes motion as something coming into being, something being essentially created, instead of what he would describe as locomotion. In the future, she continuously confuses motion, something becoming into being, and locomotion, something just moving. So just for the sake of time and clarity, I'm going to summarize his argument. It basically goes that everything in the universe, for it to come into being, needs to be moved, and for it to be moved, something else would have to move it. So this goes all the way down the chain, all the way to the beginning of the universe, saying that something originally moved the first thing in the universe that moved everything else. But it would imply that the original mover was not moved because something else would have to move it. So it would imply that this being is a being of pure act, while also this being has no imperfection, no flaws. It is purely itself. So that would also imply that that being is perfect. So going forward, his argument for God basically says that God was not moved. God is pure action. God is defined as a being of pure action. But all right, let's now get into her rebuttal.
And yes, things like lighters, things like cell phones, and things like pencils all have a maker. You can trace that back to an actual maker. But natural processes like the beginning of the universe, how things came to be, how trees grow, how babies are born, all of that happens through evolution. All of that happens through natural processes.
So there's a core flaw within her argument. She doesn't really address his original point, which something set all those processes that she's talking about, her natural processes, into motion. Like, evolution could be an answer, but what set the first chain of evolution? Go all the way back to the singularity of the universe. Something had to set outside of our frame of time and space. Something had to set that into motion. And so that's something she doesn't really grasp throughout this entire debate.
To me, it's kind of funny that we're trying to get to the point of infinite regress, that everything has to have a start, and that start was God, but you're using examples that were honestly made by people. So
again, I think it's just showing a fundamental misunderstanding of his argument. His argument is about the motion, it's about the action. So when he brings up the lighter that strikes it and it does the thing, yes, that thing was created by a human, but what he's referring to is the action of himself. The action that he does upon the lighter to strike it and light it, not the creation of the lighter itself.
But I want to address real quick.
Sure.
You brought up the God of the gaps, and I would like to point out, I think you misused that. The God of the gaps is a fallacy that occurs when there is a gap in scientific knowledge, and then they just say,
Yeah.
"Oh, God must have done that." So, for
Yeah,
example,
that's what you're
like
saying.
the Greeks, well, yeah. So the Greeks would look at like the sun rising every day, and they'd be like, "We don't know how the sun rises, therefore it's God." But what I'm doing is not saying there's a gap in our knowledge. I'm actually saying that our knowledge leads directly to a being that we can define as God. So I'm saying that since we can logically conclude a first unmoved mover, and we can logically conclude the being and the attributes of that being.
And this is why I think his argument is so powerful, is because his argument comes from a logical conclusion from our current knowledge. It's not a gap, it's he's using the inductive reasoning from the pieces that he's laid out to come to the conclusion that there is a God. She attacks him from the position that he's saying that we don't know what is after. He's using reasoning to say this is what we think is after.
So here's the thing. If God can exist without an explanation, why couldn't the universe exist without one? Listen, just because we don't have the answer to what happened right before the Big Bang doesn't automatically mean it's a sky wizard that grants wishes to white men. Okay, that makes no sense. You're saying there can't be an explanation without God. I'm saying, why couldn't the universe fall under those same properties? Or I can make up anything. Fucking Tooth Fairy. Fucking, the spirit of Harry Styles.
So there's a few logical flaws in our argument, and ignoring the annoying millennial sky wizard comment, there's a thing with the universe where it exists within time and reality. It has a start. If something has a start and exists within reality, it has to be moved. The difference between this and what would be defined as a deity or a god is that it exists outside our understanding of time and reality. So it cannot be. If God existed solely within the creation of our universe and it was not a being outside of it, then he would have to be created. But the issue with the universe is that it was created. It has a start point. So you can point to a moment when the universe came into existence, making her argument fail. And also another flaw she makes is that she said, like, oh, it could be anything. It could be Tooth Fairy, Harry Styles, whatever you want. And it's like, that is true. It could be anything that meets the qualifications that he has logically laid out. And I think she gets something wrong. He's not saying that God has these qualities. He's saying that a God would need to have these qualities, or whatever being fulfilled this principles and these qualities that he's laid out, the premises, that would then be a God. Whatever could fulfill those, unmoved mover, no potential, no potency, whatever could fulfill those qualities would then be God. He is yet to make the positive claim for a specific type of God.
In my opinion, why does it have to be God? Why couldn't it just be explained with the universe? Why can't the universe have a mover without it being a sky wizard? You know what I mean?
Because
And it's
the universe has potency, so it can't be the being.
But we don't know because we.
And so from this point on in the debate, I like to call these the potency chronicles. So basically, he just keeps making his argument that she keeps referring to things within the universe to describe the cause of the universe, but everything in the universe has potency. It has to be something outside the universe that could create the universe. She just doesn't understand that. She just keeps going around in circles and circles and circles, saying like, oh, why can it be this? Why can it be this? Why can it be this? All those things have potency. She even goes like, oh, why do you keep reading potency? I'm going to lose my mind. It's like, that's the whole point of the debate. Is this thing that is moved without being moved.
My premise that in the world we observe that there is motion is silly.
So yeah, what gives you the idea that God is the motion?
Yeah, I think I just died inside a little bit.
This being? Or are you afraid to say his name? He who shall not be named?
No, that's how premises work. We haven't come to the conclusion
well, just
that it's
say
God
Dad. Dad's my mover. Okay, why doesn't Dad have potency?
Because it's unmoved.
How do you know? I'm sorry, it says God moves across the oceans. It said God is the breath in my lungs. God is the winds and the waves. That trucker's moving around like wildfire.
You're referencing locomotion.
And earlier I talked about, remember the clip, how she's going to mistake motion for locomotion. He clearly laid out there's a difference between motion and locomotion. He means motion as coming into being. She just doesn't understand that. She doesn't make the distinction. She refers to it as like, oh, this guy's moving around everywhere. She doesn't understand that what he's talking about. I think this whole time she's just using her atheist talking points and millennial humor to get through this debate.
Do you know what?
I
do you know
mean,
what potency
listen,
is?
well, guys, he's going to say the potency definition, and let me know down below if his is going to be a lot more boring. Okay, this is already a boring argument, but I'm sure he's gonna explain it in a way that's gonna put everybody to sleep. So get ready for
Yeah,
naps.
I think at this point on, she really realizes that she's outside of her intellectual depths. So she starts going into this like millennial humor, how he's boring, and she says it, she repeats it over throughout the debate that nobody outside of middle school would care about this. How many middle schoolers do you know care about potency? If it was like, if she said like nobody under the age of 85 cares about this, I don't understand it. She has no idea. She just doesn't understand like philosophy or logic or anything like that. So she's outside of her depth, so she insults it. She insults what she doesn't understand. And also, the whole point of debates like this is to get into the weeds, is get into through the logic, and through the philosophy, and through the understanding, and through the reasoning, and through the facts. She can't say that's boring. That's the whole point of the debate. That's the whole point of the debate, is to talk about these things that people are interested in. Not everybody's going to be interested in them. If you're bored by, like, this is very basic debate stuff. This is very basic logical principles. If you're bored by this, your career is over. You don't have a field in this. Pack it up, buddy. You're done.
Okay, but who's coming up with the rules that God doesn't have potency?
Again, it's the first chain. We haven't called it God
No,
yet.
but
At
no,
that
you're
point,
you're
we're just
saying it's the first chain. No, I'm getting to the end of this boring argument. Number 7. How do we know that God doesn't have potency? Where are you getting that idea from? And could we switch out, since you want to call it a being, can we switch it out for Tooth Fairy?
We haven't called it God yet. Right
Well,
now,
let's call
we're
it Tooth
talking-
Fairy. Okay, how do we know that Tooth Fairy doesn't have potency?
This is another thing she just doesn't understand. This whole debate is just her not understanding stuff and then making huge claims and arguments off of her straw mans. He's not claiming that it's yet the Christian God or any type of God. He's just saying that this deity has to exist because of the chain of logic he set out. It could be the Tooth Fairy if the Tooth Fairy met this set of qualifications. And again, she's very snarky, being like, oh, through this boring argument. Like, the whole point of this debate is to go through arguments like this. It's not boring. You just don't understand it.
It's metaphysical. It applies to all things.
Metaphysics.
All concepts.
Like pretend science. That's freaking awesome,
You think
dude.
metaphysics is pretend science?
Fuck yeah, dude. It's just like actual science and physics are like, this is how we explain things. Metaphysics is
So,
like
Do you
the
believe-
studying
do you
of
believe in
the
truth?
why.
Do you believe in truth?
Truth? What is truthful about some bullshit about rhetoric? It's just rhetoric.
Do you believe in truth?
Why are you attaining metaphysics to truth? It's just rhetoric. It's asking the why. But the truth claim doesn't apply in metaphysics, because metaphysics asks the why. Hold on, I'll say it in a second. Metaphysics asks the why. Metaphysics says, why is the world here? What's the purpose? Physics explain the what. This is, or the how everything came to be, what the evidence is, what the science points to. Metaphysics just gets kind of wordy. It's a lot of rhetoric. It's a lot of BS. It's a way of asking questions about reality rather than providing evidence. It isn't evidence that a supernatural world exists. It just talks a lot.
Yeah. So metaphysics, you just made multiple metaphysical claims in that sentence.
And I think this is the quintessential clip to end off this breakdown, is that to grant her position, to understand where she's coming from, you must first deny all these, numinal concepts and higher thinking principles. You cannot be logical. You cannot think in metaphysics. You can't do these things if you don't believe in them, right? To think there isn't a God, you have to deny logic. You have to deny many areas of reason and stuff like that, which many atheists are comfortable with doing. They are materialists. It is only what is in front of them. They can't understand causation. They can't understand logic. They can't understand reason. And I think she can understand it. It's just because she's too stupid. Like, she just spams millennial humor throughout the debate. She doesn't really make any points. She doesn't address any of his arguments. She talks about it as boring, even though they're all like logical and substantial points he's making. I just think this is completely embarrassing of a performance, and I think a performance like this gives faith to the average Joe. It says that you can do this. You can be kind of famous. I don't know her following. I've never heard of this person before. You can be famous. You can do whatever you want. You can be an idiot in debate. There is no limits. But yeah, guys, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed, this is one of my first kind of long debate breakdowns I've done. This was fun making it. This lady is completely stupid. She has no idea what she's talking about. Jesus and Whatnot is goated. And yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.